Friends, hello. We are partway through a 4-week series exploring the story of Job together on Sunday mornings. But the second Sunday in our series was one where we experienced a number of technical difficulties, and so the message wasn't recorded. A number of people have been in touch asking if we might find a way of making that message available to them, and so I'm re-recording it today. I'm here on my own in the sanctuary, but I hope that for those of you who are listening or watching through the series, this will be helpful to you. So as we begin together, let's pray. And so, gracious God, in these moments, may the words of my mouth and the reflections of our hearts and minds in this moment be found pleasing in your sight, O God, our rock and our Redeemer. Amen. Amen. And so as we began our series, we met up together with a man named Job. And as we read part of his story, we acknowledged the fact that the world, much as we might wish otherwise, is not a safe place. That we're all vulnerable, all of us, to terrible loss and pain. What's more, the things that happen to us, good or bad, are often totally unrelated to how we've been living. The reality of undeserved suffering presents a haunting question to us and really to all of humanity. How can a compassionate and caring God make a world so full of cruelty and pain? As we reflect on this, it's as relevant as ever to hear the words of Elie Wiesel, who wrote a memoir about the time he spent as a teenage boy in the concentration camps of Auschwitz and Birkenwald. Seized by the Nazis at the age of 15, he was put in a boxcar and packed with other Jewish children, women and men, and transported to a place of unspeakable horror. His mother was murdered. His father was murdered. His little sister was murdered. Countless people around him were beaten or shot or hanged or poisoned. And always, everywhere around him, on his clothes, under his skin and in his nostrils, was the smoke that poured from the ovens where the bodies were being burned. Wiesel titled his book, Night. Some of you may have read it. And he said that from that first day, surrounded by the unrestrained cruelty of Auschwitz, his world turned into one long night. And so what do we say in the face of such suffering, the Jews and the Holocaust? Or the anguish of indigenous people in numerous countries who suffered in colonization? Or the agony of people throughout the abhorrence of slavery and lynching and racial oppression? And for many today, the idea of losing all members of their family or their worldly possessions or all of their dignity is far from theoretical. And so we're left with this question: how can a good and just God allow such unjust suffering? Well, today we get to hear what Job himself has to say about it, and he says quite a lot, actually. All kinds of words come pouring out of his mouth: angry words, hopeful words, heartbroken words, and questions. All kinds of questions pour out of Job, and he pleads his case for 37 chapters. Now, Job's friends, who have compassion for him when he can't say a word, become defensive when he starts railing against God, and they tell him he must have done something to deserve all of this because God doesn't make mistakes. We're at the very end of the book of Job. God appears to Job, and God does challenge some of what Job has said, but God's ultimate verdict is that Job has told the truth. God even rebukes the friends who thought Job was so wrong, and God says to them, "My servant Job has spoken about me what is right." So what do you say when disaster comes? How do you express what you feel or what you can't feel? How do you pray? And what do you do so much when it hurts so much that you can't pray? God said, "My servant Job has spoken what is right." So let's see what we can learn from him. I think it's worth noting Job's initial response to all of this. When all of this calamity has fallen on him, it says nothing at all. When his friends arrive, they're shocked at what they see, at the devastation that Job has experienced, and they sit down beside him for 7 days and 7 nights. And in all that time, he doesn't say a word. You can't blame him for that, really, can you? What would you say? All his children are dead. His servants are dead. His property's gone. His wife has turned on him. His body is in torment. You can easily imagine, I think, him just being there in a daze, staring at nothing, sometimes just bursting into tears, because that's what you do. I've heard people say immediately after some great loss, I don't know what to say. I don't even know what I'm feeling. Am I supposed to feel this, or should I feel that? It's all right not to know, friends, what to say or to feel. Sometimes it's too soon to know. Sometimes the most truthful response in the wake of disaster is confusion, at least for a while. But after a week of saying nothing, Job does speak, and out it all comes. He's like a man with poison inside of him trying to get it all out. Why was I born, he says. Why didn't I die as I came out of the womb? Why was life even given to me that I should live to see this? Had I died at birth, I would now be at peace, he says. Do those words shock you at all? Job's friends were shocked. Of course, they'd never been where he is now. Wait a minute, Job, you can't say that. You're a Sunday school teacher. You're an elder. We look up to you. You can't say this. You can't feel this. But he did. And he's not the only one. Many of God's children have expressed the same longing as Job to be done with this life. Now, how does God feel about that? Well, we know that God said in the end, my servant Job has spoken rightly. Apparently, God is less interested in hearing us recite happy sound bites than in hearing us tell the truth about our lives. The German theologian Dorothy Soller said, if people cannot speak about their affliction, they'll be destroyed by it. And I wonder if fewer of God's children would take their own lives, if more of them felt the freedom to say and felt themselves being heard as they said, there are days when I wish it were finished. There are days when I wish it had never begun. The first speech from Job, which we heard in our reading from chapter 3, is a classic description of how grief-stricken people can feel. You can hear Job in the text sinking further and further and further inside himself, inside this darkness which just gets thicker and thicker. And as you go through chapter 3, first Job wishes that daylight itself would go dark. And then he imagines a dark night sky, at least with the stars in it. And then he wishes that the stars would go out too. And then he pictures himself closed up inside the darkness of his mother's womb and finally inside the darkness of his own grave. And it's interesting, I think, as you read the whole book, as you read the whole story, that as Job goes deeper and deeper inside himself, inside the darkness of what he's feeling, God takes Job ever outward, beyond himself. Job gets better as God takes him further. At the very beginning, Job feels closed up inside, so much so that it feels dark. And he says so. Good for him. And friends, when you feel trapped in a dark place, friends, please, you say so too. And we'll go on striving to make sure that we as a church are a community that always listens and is encouraging people to be honest about their suffering. Job does eventually get past his preoccupation with death, mainly by talking it out. And after a while, we see him, for instance, at the end of chapter 14, clinging to life. He's fighting for his life. Like many of us, at first he's deflated, he's sad, he can barely move. And then do you know what comes next? He begins to get mad. He just gets cross, really mad. And how ironic is it that it was these friends of his who got him started, people who were too busy preserving and protecting their tiny little picture of the world to really listen to someone whose picture of the world was different. People spouting cliches, saying things about God that they have no business saying. This just makes Job mad, which in turn jolts him back into life. You know, some people will say the most stupid things to people who are grieving. Next week we'll look at Job's friends a bit more and look at how not to do that. But for now, I think we can note that God's grace can even use insufferable fools to help people who are suffering. You see, in getting mad at these lousy friends of his, Job at least has his eyes turned outward again. And from being mad at them, he progresses to being mad with a great many people. He gets especially mad at the wicked who are focused only on their own comfort, who live only focused on their own little concerns, whose lives seem to be so free from trouble. In chapter 21, Job asks, why do the wicked live? Why do they reach old age? Their children are fine, their homes are safe, their businesses flourish, they are at peace. Why, God? Job wants to know not only why do bad things happen to good people, but why do good things keep happening to bad people? It's a good question. And then all of this anger inside of him finally gets directed towards God. Now, a lot of what Job says from his suffering as you read the book is directed at friends or is a sort of muttering to himself, but he opens his angry heart to God too. And he aims what is on his angry heart towards God, which is really just another way of talking about prayer, I think. 40 years after the Holocaust, Elie Wiesel said, I rarely speak about God. To God, yes, I protest to him, I shout at him. It sounds almost as Elie is taking a page out of Job's prayer book. In chapter 7, for example, Job says, I cannot keep from speaking, I can't do it anymore. I must express my anguish, my bitter soul must complain. Leave me alone, God. For my few remaining days, leave me alone. What have I done to you? Why have you made me your target? Read these little bits of the book and it's a wonder, isn't it, that Job has the reputation of someone who's patient. You hear it said, oh, she has the patience of Job, really. Well, I guess that only works if by patience we mean not rolling over to whatever has happened to us. If patience means clinging to God no matter what. If patience means, as it seems to in the New Testament, enduring with God no matter what. Telling the truth to God, no matter what. If patience means refusing to abandon your passion, then Job is in fact the model for the kind of patience that God has in mind for us. Now, I'm not saying this morning that you have to get mad. You really don't have to be mad. But if you're cross or sad or scared or disappointed or confused, or if you happen to be the happiest you've ever been in your life, whatever you feel, that's what we're called to aim towards God. That's what we give. Part of the problem, I think, for people like you and me is that for so much of our lives, it's been at the very least implied to us that prayer is sort of putting your best foot forward with God. And that faith is just a really nice, warm feeling. So that when we don't have a best foot to put forward, or our feelings aren't nice and warm, we end up with these long, difficult silences. But prayer is in fact the putting forward of everything and anything that is true. And faith is clinging to God wherever you are and in whatever state of mind. Job loses everything and he curses. He curses the day he was born. He curses the gift of life for a little while. But he doesn't let go of God. He keeps clinging to God. He holds on with his anger because sometimes that's all you've got. He holds on with his doubts. He holds on with his weeping. He holds on with his hoping. And sometimes he holds on by shaking a fist at God. Job can't see God. He can't feel God near him. And he says, I go east, but I can't find him. I go west, but he's not there. And yet Job keeps stretching out his hand, hoping and trusting. He says, I can't see God no matter where I look. But he says, God knows the way that I take. And when I've been tested, I will emerge as gold. Do you hear the glimmer of hope there? somehow, some way, I'll come through. And if you read all of Job's speeches in this book, you'll see how every now and again there are those moments where he rises to a hope just like that. But he's too broken to stay there and to stay hopeful for long, and he keeps collapsing again all the way through the book. But his reaching for God keeps lifting him up and makes him ready for the moment of his breakthrough when God actually meets him and changes him. Here's the thing for us though. You can't really engineer your breakthrough with God. But if you patiently and persistently reach out your life to God and aim who you are to God, God will see that you're ready for the day when you do find your healing. In his frustration with how distant God seemed to him, Job cries out, and this is in chapter 9, God's not a human being like I am, and so I can't argue with God or bring God to trial. Then he says, oh, that there were a mediator between us that could lay their hand on us both. Job didn't know who he was wishing for, but we do. You see, friends, in time God sent a mediator, and in this one life God entered fully into everything that it meant to be human. In him God ate our bread and walked on our feet. In him God was misunderstood by friends and was abandoned and alone. In him God got tired, God got angry. In him God wept. And in him one day God was placed in such darkness and pain where not even God could see God. And he cried out, why have you abandoned me? And he died. See, the death and resurrection of Jesus don't spare us from grief or anguish. They don't. But when we are there, we know that God has been there too and has come out on the other side to hold us and even in time to heal us. And so we don't lose heart. We're not without an advocate. That's the good news today. There's one who knows what it is to be abandoned. And because of him, as the book of Hebrews says, let us now come with confidence to the throne of God. There we will find mercy and grace for our need. If you will come to the God who understands and ask for what you need, if you'll come telling your grief, telling your pain, telling your joy, telling the truth about your life, you will feel the hand of Christ on your shoulder. And so would you take hold of that hand as we pray together now? Merciful God, in your gracious hands all our living is held. And so would you make us wise to ask for you and to reach for you and to cling for you, even in the darkest place, especially in the darkest place. Through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.